It seems like there's an echo, so I'm going to try to mute everyone. Welcome to everyone who is hopping on. We are just getting started with our webinar. And I think we're set. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off so it's not as distracting while I'm presenting. And then I'm going to share my screen so that you guys can see my slides. Is everyone seeing that?
Yeah, I can see it. Yep.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you. All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm excited to have you all here today for our webinar on effective communication techniques for caregivers, clients, and legal guardians. Communication is a vital aspect of providing quality care and support for individuals with intellectual developmental disabilities. Throughout this webinar, we will refer to that as IDD. By improving our communication skills, we can establish strong relationships, promote understanding, and ensure the best possible outcomes for those we serve. Throughout this webinar, we will explore various techniques and strategies that can help us communicate effectively. By enhancing our communication abilities, we can better connect with individuals with IDD, their families, and caregivers. Together, we can create an environment that fosters trust, empathy, collaboration. So let's dive in. Understanding the importance of effective communication. Effective communication plays a crucial role in building strong connections and establishing trust. It allows us to better understand the needs, desires, and concerns of individuals with IDD. When we communicate effectively, we can create a supportive environment that promotes their overall well-being. Clear and meaningful communication is the key to understanding individuals with IDD on a deeper level. It helps us appreciate their unique perspectives and experiences, enabling us to provide personalized care. By building trust through effective communication, we create a solid foundation for a positive caregiver-client relationship. The challenges and barriers to effective communication in the IDD context. Communication difficulties faced by individuals with IDD, such as limited verbal abilities or sensory issues, and misunderstandings due to differences in communication styles and methods seem to be the biggest hurdles. And recognizing and overcoming these barriers is essential for establishing effective communication channels. It's important to communicate with individuals with disabilities because individuals with disabilities are often overlooked within society, especially adults with intellectual disabilities. Many people might mean well when they choose not to make eye contact, walk away quickly, or give a quick greeting before moving on to what they need to accomplish within their day. The reality is that the lack of communication is communicating a lot of negativity to the individual, and it's important to acknowledge that so we can improve communication in the future. When you communicate effectively with people with disabilities, it helps their voices, opinions, thoughts, and desires to be made known within a society and a community. When people with disabilities are given an opportunity to communicate effectively, it helps improve their emotional and mental health and helps them feel like they have a place of belonging in society. Tips for helpful communication with individuals with disabilities. There are some basic guidelines you should follow when speaking with individuals with disabilities. Here are some best practices to consider when engaging in these conversations. Don't speak loudly. It can be a default to want to raise your voice and speak super slowly when speaking with someone with a disability. It's important to remember that people with intellectual disabilities don't automatically have a hearing impairment, so raising your voice is not going to make them understand you better or more clearly. Speaking in a normal, clear voice is always best. Adults with intellectual disabilities might have a longer processing time to decode the information that you're telling them. Be patient and give them the time to process what you said and then come up with a response for how they want to reply. Don't try to rush through the conversation. Be present and in the moment. Individuals with IDD may have difficulties processing complex information or abstract concepts. Using clear, concise, and concrete language helps ensure understanding. Avoiding jargon and technical terms that might be unfamiliar to them is crucial. Some individuals may respond better to visual cues, while others may prefer verbal instructions. Adapting our communication style to match their preferences enhances comprehension. Presenting information in manageable portions increases clarity. We can break down complex complex tasks into simple steps to facilitate understanding and promote independence. Visual aids such as pictograms or visual schedules can supplement verbal communication. Assistive communication tools such as communication boards or augmented and alternative communication devices such as AACs support individuals with limited verbal abilities. Finally, don't use a patronizing voice. Many people might default to wanting to speak to an adult with an intellectual disability with the same voice they would use to speak to an infant or a small child. This can come off as patronizing to the individual with a disability. If they are an adult, speak to them like they are an adult. So here are some guidelines for improving communication between clients, caregivers, and guardians. We have heard from a few individuals over the last few months about problems communicating between clients who are their own guardian and their caregiver, or between a legal guardian who is not the client and the caregiver. We wanted to offer a few things that we have available to you to help facilitate clear communication between clients, guardians, and caregivers. In our mobile app, we have a section that you can access down at the bottom of the screen with a little speech bubble. When you click on that bubble, you will be able to see all of the caregivers on your team. When you click on a caregiver, you will be able to start a chat directly with the caregiver through the mobile app. We ask for communication between clients, guardians, and caregivers that pertain to caregiving specifically for the client to be done inside the mobile app. The app is HIPAA compliant, which means that specific information for the client and the care they receive is protected. There is always a potential that someone's phone and text messages can be hacked into. Should that ever happen, there is a liability that important client information could be read by individuals who should not have access to their care. Keeping messaging within the secured app protects the client's privacy and removes any liability on behalf of the guardian, client, or caregiver. Phone calls between these parties outside the mobile app are completely fine, and we understand that there may be times when a phone call is more appropriate than a text, but we do recommend using the app for any messaging that occurs between these parties as it pertains to caregiving. Honest communication between caregivers, clients, and families. We touched on this a bit in last month's webinar when we were discussing caregiver burnout, but honest communication between caregivers, clients, and families is super important to ensure the well-being of everyone involved in the caregiving process. If caregivers are struggling with burnout and are unsure if they can continue their job, those are hard but honest conversations that need to be had with the family. If families find that a current caregiving situation isn't working for them, they need to be able to have those hard and honest conversations with the caregiver. Some tips for making these hard conversations easier could be choosing the right time and place. Find a suitable environment where everyone can feel comfortable and undisturbed. Ensure privacy and minimize distractions to create a conducive atmosphere for open dialogue. Prepare in advance. Take time to gather your thoughts and outline the key points you want to address. Consider the different perspectives and potential reactions from all parties involved. Maintain respect and empathy. Show respect and empathy towards each person involved, acknowledging their emotions and concerns. Be mindful of your tone and body language, ensuring they convey understanding and support. Use I statements. Frame your statements using I instead of you to express your thoughts and feelings without sounding accusatory. For example, you could say, I'm having a hard time with ... or I feel that this isn't working because ... and you could insert your reasons there. Being able to make the situation about you instead of pointing direct blame at someone else can help these conversations go smoother. Look for common ground. Look for shared goals or interests among all parties involved. Emphasize the common objective of providing the best care for the client and focus on finding mutually agreeable solutions. Brainstorm solutions. Collaboratively explore potential solutions or strategies that address the concerns raised. Encourage creativity and open-mindedness while considering the practicality and feasibility of the suggestions. Remember, having hard conversations requires patience, understanding, and a willingness to work through challenges. By applying these tips, you can create an environment that promotes healthy dialogue, strengthens relationships, and leads to improved caregiving experiences for all parties involved. Lastly, we wanted to touch on mediation. As the caregiving agency involved in this equation, we feel strongly about helping to strengthen caregiver, client, and guardian relationships if these conversations don't feel like they can happen independently. While this isn't anything we've had to ever implement or do yet, if you feel you ever need a third party to help mediate these discussions, we're always happy to step in and help in the best way we can. Please let us know anytime if there's anything we can do to help these discussions and relationships. As the provider, we have an obligation to both the client and the caregiver. And so we are passionate about making sure that all parties feel heard, understood, validated in the caregiving process. Thank you all for taking the time to meet with us today. We are grateful for these conversations that we get to have with you each month. And if you ever need any help from us as an agency, we would love to hear from you anytime at support@Giv.care. We're going to turn the time over to you guys right now for you to be able to share any comments or questions or concerns that you have about anything that we've just presented. We would love to know on a bigger level what your experiences with communication have been in the past, what you feel has worked well for you, things that you're currently struggling with. We would love to be able to help or hear from you in any way that we can. And if there's anything that we can do from an agency to improve communication with all of you, we would love to hear that as well. So the floor is for you guys to raise your hands and share with us on anything you'd like to comment on.
Hey, Paige.
Hey, Jen.
Knowing that you have, a child with a disability, what has been your personal experience in figuring out, good ways to communicate and things that work well or don't work well? Can you share a little bit of just a personal experience there?
Yeah, for sure. So for people who are on the call who don't know me personally, and I usually mention this at the beginning, but I forgot, but I do have a daughter who has both physical and intellectual disabilities. She's 8. And so for me personally, I've had to learn that as a parent, when my child doesn't tell me exactly what they need in the exact time frame that I expect them to tell me, I can very easily get frustrated, or I'll like keep asking the same question 12 different ways, waiting for my daughter to give me a response, which I've learned is unhelpful. And so I think for me, the biggest thing that I've had to learn is just patience in communication, and that it's okay if we wait 30 seconds to a minute of uncomfortable, awkward silence before she can like give me an answer of what she wants. And I think that has really been the key for me in a lot of things, is just trying to find the patience of navigating her communication style with my own. And then I also think for me, just being able to use super simple language. I think sometimes I kind of just assume that my daughter should know what I'm talking about when she doesn't. And so I think, when she has had a lot of processing time to where she should have been able to give an answer in that time frame, I have to kind of realize like maybe she didn't understand it. And at that point, kind of rephrasing into a simpler term of like, do you want apple or an orange? Or asking her more simple yes or no questions has been a lot more helpful, just so that kind of not delays, but it shortens the expectation for her to respond if it's a simple yes or no question instead of her having to give me a full sentence. I think that's been really helpful as well, to just kind of be able to simplify my question and simplify the answer that I need from her, I guess, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Paige.
Yeah. We would love to know what has worked for you guys with communication in the past, because we know that everyone has had such different and unique experiences, and everyone is kind of impacted differently in what they are and are not able to do. So we'd love to hear from you guys to know what has been helpful for you. Yeah, Wallace.
What I've noticed is it's important to not force the communication, and also to try to read between the lines, because I've noticed my individual usually has some difficulty in clarifying and identifying needs. So it takes a little bit of, intuitive approach, I would say, to understand a need, and definitely don't force it. I mean, sometimes we'll be like 30 minutes in and not making any ground. And so I'll just table it and, kind of let the situation calm down, and maybe approach it an hour later, unless it's something urgent. But yeah, I've learned, don't force it, give them time, and you're going to probably do a lot of trying to read between the lines.
Yeah, that is a great thought. I love that. And that kind of made me have the thought of, I think a lot of problems with communication on my end have to do with me having really high expectations for what should happen. And so I've kind of noticed for myself that when I kind of like back off of my own expectations, things tend to go a lot better, when I just kind of back off and let the situation kind of play out on its own a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're setting your adult agenda aside and trying to relate to this individual that's got very different communication parameters. And it's a real growing process, but it can also be really fulfilling. So,
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Anyone else? We would love to hear from you guys. Or if you just have, some overall tips for how we as Giv.care can improve our communication with all of you, we would love to hear that as well. Yeah, Wallace.
sorry if I'm chiming in again.
Yeah, I love it.
One thing I've noticed also is it's extremely helpful, as part of communication with scheduling, to have it written down, because my individual doesn't remember things as well. And when it's written down, we've literally got a calendar, a dry erase calendar that we fill out, and it helps to keep him oriented and scheduled. And he does have um, quite a few things on his schedule, so this also helps us to not overlap. But it takes a lot of the stress out for him when he can see, okay, Wednesday I've got this, Thursday I've got that. I have a little bit of time Friday afternoon. I can talk to my friends, etc. So having that written down, recorded visual cue, takes a lot of the confusion and stress out of it for him.
That's awesome. That is such a great tip too. And that's something that I feel like I even need to implement in my own life. But yeah, having those reminders can be super helpful. Hi, Irene. Welcome. We are in the Q&A portion of our webinar. And so if you have any questions about effective communication, we would love to be able to answer those with you. Or if you have comments or questions about things that have or have not worked for you in the past, we'd love to hear. Well, if no one else has any comments for the webinar, then I will just go ahead and close it out here for the day. But I do want to just say thank you so much to everyone who has been with us on this webinar today. I do also want to call out that we are going to be having an agency-wide event available for all of you to attend on July 19th. And that will be at Riverton City Park from 6 to 8 p.m. We will have food trucks on us for you to come have dinner with you and your family and your client and all the people in your life. So we will be sending out a future email in a few weeks to RSVP for that event, but we want to get that on your radar now. And then we will follow up this webinar tomorrow morning with an email recording for people to be able to watch later on in the future. And then there'll be a reminder for that food truck event as well. So we're super excited to see you guys next month and interact with you. And we hope that you will be able to attend. In the meantime, if you have any questions or concerns about anything, support@Giv.care is the best email to reach us at, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.